Okay, I'm going to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. Members present are myself, Mr. Koss, Mr. Frazier, Mr. Bubb, and Mr. Johnson for Mr. Marmee. The first item on the agenda is Ordinance 17-16 to provide for the issuance of $1,120,000 of bond anticipation notes in anticipations of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying the cost of various street and parking lot improvements, sidewalk construction, and lighting improvements, and all necessary appurtenances thereto, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Johnson.
You described that very well. This will allow the city to renew a note for those for that purpose for one more year. And a year from now, we'll probably either reduce the principal or issue a bond.
Okay. And there's a deadline on this? Is that the reason for the emergency clause?
Exactly.
Okay.
And I said before, when you're issuing bonds or notes, a lot of people are involved, and the process really doesn't start until the legislation is in place.
Okay. Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bubb, second by Mr. Frazier. Any questions or concerns from the committee? From the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, the second thing is Ordinance 17-17, an ordinance providing for the issuance of not to exceed $1,155,000 capital improvement bonds and declaring an emergency.
Items 2 and 3 basically will go together, but what we're doing here is we're just replacing a short-term obligation with a bond issue that'll be paid back over the course of 20 years.
Okay.
Motion.
Okay. Motion by Frazier, second by Bubb. Any questions or concerns? Any from the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Ordinance 17-18, an ordinance providing for the issuance of not to exceed $395,000 landfill improvement bonds and declaring an emergency.
Recently, you renewed the landfill note for a period of 90 days, so it would fall in line with the one described in item 2. That's going to be a bond issue. They're dealt with separately because they're two different things, but they'll be combined into one bond issue.
Okay, thank you.
Motion. Second.
Motion by Bubb, second by Frazier. Any questions or concerns from the committee? From the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And one more, Mr. Johnson. Ordinance 17-19, amending 2 ordinance passed on April 3rd, 2017, providing for the issuance of not to exceed $2 million of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying the cost of Buckeye Corridor stormwater plan sewer improvements and all necessary appurtenances thereto, and for the issuance of not to exceed $1 million of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying the cost of water system improvements and all necessary appurtenances thereto, respectively, and declaring an emergency.
This one is very simple. The ordinances passed on April 3rd had the wrong name of the underwriter in it, and bond counsel feels that needs to be corrected. So that's what this is doing.
Okay. Any questions or concerns from the committee?
Motion.
Motion by Frazier.
Second.
Second by Johnson. Any questions or comments from the committee?
One. Is this, are we last time? Is that what the goal is? We got the underwriter right this time, the last time?
It is correct.
Okay.
I proofread it about 4 times.
All right, perfect.
Okay, any questions from the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign, opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Resolution 17-33, authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Newark to prepare and submit an application to the Ohio Department of Public Safety, Office of Criminal Justice Services for a 2017 Ohio Community Police Relations Grant.
This legislation will allow us to apply for a maximum of $40,000 from the state of Ohio. There's 25% in-kind or cash match.
25%, well, I'm sorry.
Match, local match.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Second.
Motion by Doug, second by Frazier.
And we need to waive second reading on this.
Okay. Okay. Second by Frazier. Is there a deadline on it? Okay. All righty. Any comments or questions?
What is the timeline associated with this?
Well, the grant is due May 18th, so that's why we need to waive the second reading.
Yeah. And when do they let us know if we have been accepted or not? Do you know?
We will know by the end of the year.
Okay. And this is for next year.
Correct. It won't impact this year's budget at all.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay. And finally, Resolution 17-36, appropriating monies for the current expenses of the municipal corporation maintenance of streets.
Thanks. This is funding that we've had on deposit since probably about 2010, I believe. We closed the purchase order and put it in an investment account in 2012, but it's basically money that was left over from the construction of Evans Boulevard off of Sharon Valley Road, and it was a contribution made to the city, the partnership to build that roadway. So there's just a little over $140,000 left. We would like to appropriate those funds to be used for the roundabout project that will be constructed this summer. We actually open bids tomorrow for it. So, any questions? I'll be glad to answer.
Roundabout to be done before school starts, or
that's the goal.
That's the goal.
Yep.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cost, second by Mr. Frazier. Any other comments or questions?
I wondered, is there additional funding that's required outside of this for the roundabout?
Oh, absolutely. The cost estimate is about $1.1 million, and we have a grant and a loan from the Ohio Public Works Commission. I believe it's $750,000. We'll use this and some of our license plate permissive tax funds to make up the difference.
Perfect. And have we already allocated the license plate permissive tax?
It's appropriated, yes. Perfect. And there's also some water and stormwater funding in the project also.
Okay. Excuse me, any other questions or comments from the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
That's over, and we're on to service.
All right, we'll call the Service Committee meeting to order. Those present are myself, Rath, Cost, Bub, Frazier, and Floyd. Try to get through this quick so we get to the main show. Up first, substance of discussion. Resolution number 17-30, authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service of the City of Newark, Ohio to apply for, accept, and enter into a water pollution control loan fund agreement on behalf of the City of Newark for planning, design, and/or construction of wastewater facilities, anaerobic digester project, and designing a dedicated repayment source for the loan. Mr. Loomis.
Yeah, this is just the authorization for us to enter into a loan. The plan, the project is being designed right now. Of course, we'll be bidding it later this fall, first quarter of 2018, and then hopefully enter into a loan sometime in the first part of 2018 for this project. The loan will, right now, our cost estimates are somewhere between $6.5 and $7 million. So.
Okay.
That's where we're at with that. So.
This is the same project we've been talking about, 2 stages.
Same project. I was here a couple weeks ago regarding the engineering, hiring engineers for this.
Okay. Any questions from anybody on the committee?
Motion. Second.
Motion by Bob. Second by Frazier. Any questions by anybody in the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor of passing this on to full council signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. That passes 5-0. Thank you. Roger. Up next, Resolution 17-31, authorizing the conveyance of certain real property now owned by the City of Newark, Ohio to Newark Development Partners as its agent for industrial, commercial, distribution, and research development, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Rhodes.
You're probably asking yourself, gosh, didn't we do this 15 months ago? And the answer to the question is yes, we did. Upon preparing the title work for transfer, there was an old parcel number included in these parcels, and we felt just for housekeeping reasons we ought to include that parcel number in this legislation and run it through council one more time.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Floyd, seconded by Frazier. Mr. Rhodes, what is that parcel?
I don't have the exact number. All three of them, though, are listed in this legislation, and they are correct. They were checked by Mary Albright, Stimson Title, and Doug Sasson. But if you go on the back page, you've got the address and the parcel numbers there. I'm not sure which one was
33 to 41 South 3rd Street.
Yep.
Any questions by anybody in the committee? Why do we need an emergency?
We're in the process of transferring it. Just it's been hanging around for a year and a half.
Okay, I'm sorry,
No,
I hate to be persistent, but why do we need an emergency?
Well, if you don't want to put an emergency on, then don't. The reason is we were in the midst of getting the title work done to get it transferred, and we're held up because of this. If you wanted to wait 6 or 8 weeks, you're not going to change the day, but Doug Sasson thought it was appropriate because of finding that other parcel number to put it in as an emergency, and I said, okay. So if you feel as though that doesn't fit, then remove the emergency.
Could we accomplish everything that's needed by waiving a 2-day reading rule?
Well, you can do it either way. That's really your choice.
Would that be all right?
That'd be fine.
I would prefer.
Well, that's great. Let's do it.
Just to not abuse the emergency
Somebody
clause.
need to make a motion to that effect.
Right. We can do that. Any other questions for the committee? Any questions from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes. It will be held at full, or read at full council. Thank you, sir. Up next, we'll have Resolution -1732, authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into a contract for the purchase of certain real property on behalf of the City of Newark, pertinent to the Don Edwards Park.
I was kind of hoping that there'd be a map on here. If you go down to Don Edwards Park, there's a house where the South Newark Civic Association is currently housed. And if you go down the road there's a yellow house, and then there's a couple vacant lots. We have an opportunity to pick up one of those vacant lots at a favorable price. It's in a floodplain, nothing will ever be built on it. When there are cookouts done and things of that nature, people generally set up on this individual's lot, and they approach the city about buying the lot since we're using the lot, and the price is $1,500. And I thought, well, that's pretty fair. Let's do it. I didn't think I even needed council's approval to do it, and Doug said, Dave, you probably don't, but just in the thoughts of being transparent, we'd like to add that to the city's parcel down there, Don Edwards Park. And it backs up to the Licking County Park District land also. So if we ever want to do anything bigger with the Park District, we've got the site a little better put together.
Okay. Is there a real estate agency involved in this?
Not at all.
No. Who's the current owner?
Current owner, last name Martin.
Okay. Any questions from?
Second.
Motion by Cost, seconded by Frazier. Any other questions from the committee?
I have one. So,
Fraser.
David, when you drive in, is it to the right side? Is
Yeah,
that
as you drive in, you've got the the South Newark Civic Association.
And then you have the driveway for the Licking County Parks District.
Yeah. You'd pass the corner, you'd turn right in front of the corner of the South End Civic Association's house and go down. Then you have a vacant lot. Then you have the yellow house, a vacant lot. It's this lot there.
And are you planning to put signage up to say what's, like whether you're allowing parking or whether you're allowing people to set up?
I haven't gotten that far. What we'd really like to do eventually is work out a greater development with the Licking County Park District, maybe an overview of the river, maybe a little further canoe livery, things of that nature. We'd like to take advantage of some of the funding they have for something along those lines.
Yep. Perfect.
Any questions from the committee? Any other questions from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor of passing this on to full council signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0. Up next, resolution number 17-34, authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service to accept bids and sell certain surplus personnel property now owned by the City of Newark, Ohio, and declaring that such property is no longer needed for any municipal purpose and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. What we're going to have here is another auction at the impound lot. We're pushing very hard out there to clean that up and to bring funds in. The reason for the emergency clause on this is just timing for public notification to meet all the deadlines to be able to sell these vehicles at auction.
Motion.
Motion by Floyd.
Second.
Second by Frazier. Any questions from the committee?
I have one. When's the day of the auction that you're
I think it's June 24th. June 24th.
It's Saturday, June 24th, 2017.
Yep. Come on out, Mark. If you haven't been,
I've already been one.
Come on out.
I didn't
again.
buy anything.
Go early, they go quick.
Go
Any
early, they
questions
go
from the
quick.
committee? Any questions from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor of passing this on to full council signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That will be passed on to full council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Last but not least, ordinance number 17-21, amending chapter 1054, section 1054.16 of the codified ordinances of the City of Newark, Ohio regarding the stormwater management code.
Yes, sir. So the Stormwater Management Code was passed back in 2007 by Ordinance 07-46. And over the years, there have been some changes and some updates that have been requested from Ohio EPA and to match up with the current NPDES requirements. If you look through the document, there's several typos and so forth that were corrected, but the major points of it are updates and more detail on the requirements for construction sites and the submittals that the city requires for the plan submittals and so forth. And then also for post-construction, the details that the designers need to submit to the city on the post-construction side of things also. Otherwise, it's really more typos and formatting changes than anything else. Those are the most substantial items. So if there's any questions, I'll try to answer them.
So everything in blue is changed.
The blue items are changes, correct.
Make a motion.
Motion by Floyd. Seconded by Bob. Any questions from the committee?
I have a question.
Mr. Frazier.
For the surface water protection, is this just getting in line with all the other regulatory agencies? Is that why we added it in and we're not doing anything different than those regulatory agencies?
That's correct. We're not doing anything different. You're exactly right. It brings us in line with what the EPA requirements are and puts enough detail to it. If you happen to look at the older version, it was a little bit more generic in wording, didn't have the detail that this does, and so this just really details what we're expecting to see.
Frazier?
And then for construction, is it changing the way that we do business with construction companies, or just making sure that they follow environmental standards?
It is not changing the way we're currently doing business. It's giving a more detail to the designer. If they pull up this document on the website, they'll see exactly what we're looking for. Again, if you look at the previous version, it was about a half a page under the construction site part. So now we've got a lot more detail explaining exactly what we're looking for to comply with the regulations.
Any other questions from the committee? Any questions from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor of passing this on to council for vote signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moorhead. And that concludes the Service Committee meeting. Up next will be Safety Committee.
We will be rescheduling the Safety Committee for 2 weeks. We will have the Chief's annual presentation then of his report, and we'll go to Economic Development Committee.
We'll call this meeting of the Economic Development Committee to order. Members present, Mr. Rath, Mr. Koss, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Frazier, and myself. We have one piece of legislation on our agenda tonight, and it is to consider ordinance number 1720, establishing Chapter 1281 of the Codified Ordinance of the City of Newark, Ohio, and thereby adopting Article 98, Medical Marijuana Dispensaries of the Zoning Code of the City of Newark, Ohio. And I believe our Safety Director, Steve Baum, is going to speak to the legislation.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm available for any questions. You've been presented with legislation for your consideration. However, as the governing body, you are certainly welcome to make any adjustments or changes. What I will say is, as you read that, understand that I believe in September of 17, or by September of 17, the state will make their final list of restrictions or obligations or any particulars that they want to put on that legislation. So we could see more changes, which is why, frankly, I would recommend a moratorium on that for a year, or at least past the deadline, or if you wanted to forward this to the Planning Commission so that there's time to look at it and study it and see what other changes come down the pike. We could take a look at it then to make a final recommendation once it comes back to council. This is more in the nature of a conversation. We had inquiries about this. Having not addressed it in the zoning code, we felt we needed to present some ideas to you on what we should do with it. There's also a manufacturing and processing aspect of this that we didn't address tonight. It's going to require some conversation on all our parts and see how everybody feels about it.
Thank you, Director Baum. Mr. Frazier.
I spent my free time this weekend in order to do some research, and so the reason why the screen's there is I have a PowerPoint presentation from the Ohio Medical Association, the DEA, and one of the. Do you mind if I go down there and speak on this camera? Sure. And so one of the goals of the medical committee that is set up to oversee this is actually to make this as transparent as possible. And so when you go to their website, you have the opportunity to see a lot of the information, and it actually is very enlightening. So hopefully the city laptop is going to work for me. All right. So the way that this all kind of started was Issue 3 being placed on the ballot in November 2015. So this was the measure that a lot of people saw the monopolistic trends of 10 commercial growers being in control of the entire population of growing, and really the money was an oligopoly. And so this was defeated by about 64% of the vote. So after that, the state reassessed the situation as far as medical marijuana in Ohio. The polls seem to be trending that the majority of people in Ohio were for the medical benefits of marijuana. So House Bill 523 became effective on September 8, 2016. And what this did was create Ohio's medical marijuana control program. So the Ohio Department of Commerce and the State of Ohio Board of Pharmacy are in charge of Ohio's medical marijuana control program. What this allows is 24 cultivators, 12 that are level 1 status and 12 that are level 2 status. Level 1 is 25,000 square feet, level 2 is 3,000 square feet. And you can see that the timelines that are associated with this. Applications are due on 6/19 to 6/30 this year, and for the level 2, they're due 6/5 to 6/16 this year. So the program is really starting to ramp up. They have also set aside 40 processing provisional licenses, and there's a $10,000 application fee associated with that. There's also testing facilities for marijuana that is being established, and that's only accessible to higher education facilities only. And then also this really set the standards for the medical conditions, the way that it's going to be consumed, and the jurisdiction behind it. So the big thing that this is a medical treatment, and there are specific illnesses that are covered here. And so this is over 20 illnesses that are expressly covered and are the only illnesses covered. There is a process in order to add additional illnesses, but for now, this is what we're looking at. And when you look at the impact that this has on Parkinson's, epilepsy, seizures, we're talking about children and adults. And so this children that have extreme seizures, extreme medical conditions, can really benefit from the treatments of medical marijuana. And that's what I really want us to focus on is the medical application of this, where prohibition actually limits medical access to individuals that have real conditions. And for the consumption, it expressly says that it prohibits marijuana from being smoked or combusted, but it does allow for vaping. And it also prohibits any form that's attractive to children. And so you're looking at oils, edibles, patches, expressly spelled out in the legislation. Now, when it comes to the dispensary rules, so yes, September 8th, 2017 is when the official rules are going to be presented. However, this committee met last year, and the Board of Pharmacy set the groundwork for what the rules are going to be, and it's available on their website. The key focus of the dispensary rules is on public safety, safe access to medical product, and scalability. They're projecting 40 dispensary licenses throughout the state of Ohio. It's subject to a final inspection after 6 months and subject to any inspection at any time by the State Pharmacy Board. It's an $80,000 biennial fee, so $40,000 every year, and all sales will be reported to the Ohio Automated Prescription Reporting System within 5 minutes of the sale. It requires a licensed pharmacist or a licensed prescriber. Employees are licensed with the State Pharmacy Board. Security measures are required to prevent diversion, and patient education is required as well. Additional dispensary rules is that a retail dispensary is prohibited from being located within 500 feet of a school, church, public library, public playground, or public park. And cities may adopt additional regulations to limit the number of retail dispensaries. So the next thing I wanted to go to was the DEA's website. And so the DEA has a 2016 drug threat assessment. And so the three that I wanted to pull was heroin, consumer prescription drugs, and marijuana. Heroin, we hear a lot about the opiate epidemic, and I was actually surprised at the way that the DEA constructed this, where the trend is that it's growing and aggressive, and not that it's persuasive. But when it comes to the threat control of controlled prescription drugs, such as opiates, Vicodin, Percocet, Oxycontin, the staggering reveal was, while recent data suggests the abuse of these drugs has lessened in some areas, the number of individuals reporting current abuse of CPDs is still more than those reporting of cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, MDMA, and PCP combined. With slightly declining abuse levels of CPDs, data indicates there's increasing heroin use as CPD abusers have begun using heroin as a cheaper alternative to high-priced illicit CPDs, or when they are unable to obtain prescription drugs. And then when it comes to marijuana, and so they mentioned the state laws and how it's an impact to the legality, the way that they execute under federal law, and the shifts of trends of higher grade, better controlled, less imported from Mexico and drug cartels. And so I just wanted to make sure that we level set on what this legislation before us would do. And so on November 8, 2016, we had a local election here where the Newark Marijuana Initiative passed by 53.52% of the votes. And what it did was eliminated Newark's additional marijuana penalties. And so previously 100 grams of marijuana was a $500 fine and up to 60 days in jail. Previously marijuana paraphernalia was a $250 fine and 30 days in jail. And now with that passing, it's a $150 fine for both and possible loss of driving privileges. So less fines, no jail time, and so and in line with the state law. Ordinance 1720, which is before us today, is the prohibition of dispensaries. So the final state rules will be established on September 8, 2017, mandated by the state. This law will eliminate medical access to Newark residents to pick up prescribed medication. And we will still allow the cultivation and processing of marijuana, just not the distribution for medical benefit. And so my recommendation, hearing the administration, submitting to the Will Council, is a moratorium on zoning for dispensaries until August 2017. It will ease the administrative impact of inquiries and zoning requests and allow for the state to further develop the rules and hopefully have a better understanding. And in August 2017, we can have a better way of addressing this situation to identify the appropriate zoning, appropriately making sure that dispensaries are available to the public. My other recommendation is to limit the number of dispensaries to a maximum of 3. And so we have 40 dispensaries that are projected in the state. We are the 18th largest seat in the state. And so how do we get available medicine to people, and how do we protect residential areas, commercial areas, and the general public from having a dispensary on every corner? And that's by limiting the number. And the other big thing is to educate the public about drug abuse prevention, medical marijuana, and responsible medical consumption. And so if you bear with me for just a 2-minute video, this is a gentleman with Parkinson's. He consumes marijuana for the first time, and I just wanted to show you what the impact is for this gentleman.
Hi, Larry. How are you? Come in. How you feeling? It's been a rough week. The best way to take it is put it onto your tongue and rub it into your cheek. Don't do too much, you're going to be asleep all afternoon. You know what you should do? No, don't try to communicate, just relax. See what happens.
We know from animal experiments that the endogenous cannabinoid system is very important in regulating motor activity, the very type of activity that is impaired in Parkinson's disease. From animal experiments, we also know that boosting certain branches of the endocannabinoid system is helpful in relieving symptoms of Parkinson's. Finally, from anecdotal information, we know that certain patients who smoke marijuana experience relief of their symptoms.
I think you're calmed down. Amazing.
he used just a single drop, and his hands afterwards were rock steady, and the dyskinesia left.
Louis is back. He works most of the time. That is. Did you guys see much? Like younger now?
And so, the biggest thing is getting through the stigma. When it comes to medical marijuana, there's over 20 conditions that it's been shown to treat that's been passed by the state legislature in order to enable access to the citizens in our community. And it's a disservice to our residents to require them to go outside the city limits because of stigma or fear or lack of information. And so by doing a moratorium until August, we can collect additional information. We can not put the zoning board into a pickle. But it also, we need to focus on what it's not addressing, and that's illegal marijuana sales. It's also not addressing more illicit drugs, and it's also not addressing legal prescription drug use. And so I have the references, medicalmarijuana.ohio.gov is really the best source of transparency and information for the way that this program is supposed to be rolled out, for updates, and overall the program is supposed to be in place by September 8th of 2018 completely. And with that, I'll yield.
Thank you, Councilman Frazier. Director Bond, considering Councilman Frazier's presentation, I'd like to hear your comments.
I retrieved most of my information from the same first two websites, the Dispatch and medicalmarijuana.ohio.gov. There's a lot of good information. As far as the moratorium until August of 2017, since all the restrictions won't be in place until September of 2017, I would suggest if that's the route you choose to take, that you at least extend it past September so we know exactly what we're talking about. There could be a last-minute change that you might wish to consider. I would suggest that we have conversation about cultivation and manufacturing to go along with the dispensaries. But as long as the dispensaries are strictly a cash business, I have concerns with the safety of these dispensaries inside the city of Newark. And that's just how I feel. Safety is my span of control, and I'm concerned about a cash business that can't deposit their money in banks. So, as far as medical marijuana on a whole, on a personal level, if it helps people, it helps people, and I'm all for that. I'm concerned with the retail shop inside the city limits.
Mr. Chair.
We gave quite
a no, you're fine. You're fine. I'll be at the back of the line. I'll be at the back of the line.
That will be true. Mr. Rath.
Can you explain why it is a cash business that cannot deposit their monies in the banks? What do you mean by that?
As I understand it, at this point in time, the federal government does not allow an FDIC-insured institution to accept money from a marijuana dispensary. If that has changed, then I'm incorrect, and I'll be the first one to say I'm correct. But I don't believe that to be the case at this time. So if you can't deposit your money, then you're doing a cash business. It means you don't take credit cards, debit cards. It means you take cash. And I just have safety concerns about marijuana, be it medical or otherwise, and a cash business inside the city of Newark. I think with the restrictions, it's, as Mr. Frazier rightly pointed out, they can't be within 500 feet of several areas, churches, parks, schools. I would want to add gambling establishments, liquor establishments. I don't know that I would want it in the downtown area. I think there's other restrictions you would want to put on these should you choose to allow dispensaries inside the city of Newark.
Let's go Councilman Rath for follow-up, then we'll go to Mr. Johnson.
Are your safety concerns because of the abundance of cash in the house, or is it because of the marijuana in the facility, or both?
I concern myself with the cash, what they do with the cash at night. there's simply problems with the cash business of having lots of cash on hand. I mean, you're not going to deposit it in a bank 2 or 3 times a day like a regular business would. I don't want to be a trailblazer on this issue. I would like to take a look at other places to see how they manage these safety concerns with dispensaries. If there are safety concerns with dispensaries, I'd like to look at it before we jump in with both feet.
Mr. Johnson.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Fraser for a very comprehensive presentation. However, if the rules are not going to be in place as we know them until September, I don't know any reason why we should move ahead with anything on this until we really know what we're really talking about, because it seems to me we really don't know what we're talking about. Maybe the state will come along with some comprehensive program or something that we don't accept or we don't like, or maybe they'll come up with something that we really can use and answer the questions regarding cash, etc. So
I agree.
I would move that we table this until an appropriate time.
There's a motion to table. Second by Mr. Fraser. Seeing that there's a motion and a second to table.
There is further discussion.
There is no. All those in favor of tabling this piece of legislation, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Legislation's tabled, and that concludes the business of this committee. With that, we stand adjourned. Capital improvements next.
We'll call the Capital Improvements Committee to order. Members present are Hall, Rath, Agnes, Fraser, and myself, Mr. Rath. Calling the meeting to order. We're considering Resolution 1735, appropriating monies for the municipal corporation.
You have PowerPoint?
I do not.
Thank you.
I hope I'll be short and sweet with this. This is funding that we received from Licking Parks District. Actually, the service director and the Parks Department had worked out a deal with them, and basically we'll be including another section of bike path resurfacing from the YMCA out to 21st Street, and we would like to appropriate these funds into our account so that we can include them with our resurfacing project.
Motion.
We did this last year with another portion of the path over off of Log Pond Run along the diversion channel.
Motion by Fraser, seconded by Rath.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Parks District matching on this at all?
This was the estimate for paving that portion, and so they give us the full amount.
Okay, so this is fully funded by the parks?
That section is, yes.
And this, where is this? Which bike path is this?
It's the bike path that runs from the YMCA on Church Street and then runs along the south side of Route 16 over to 21st Street.
Oh, okay. Are there any other questions? Any questions from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we adjourned?
Are you going up?
We are adjourned.
We are adjourned, I'm sorry.
You gotta stay up there.